The Apostle Paul was very instrumental in starting the first churches. He would go into a town and he would preach Jesus. He would tell them all about Jesus, and he'd tell them about the good news, and he'd start a community. And then he'd go on to another town, and he'd tell them about Jesus, and he'd teach the good news, and he'd start a community. And then he'd go on to another town, and he'd do the same thing. And he started these early churches. And he kept in touch with the churches that he had started through letters. And these letters are what we have in our Bible. So when we read the book of Corinthians 1, Corinthians 2, we're actually reading Paul's letters to the church at Corinth. The same with like Galatians. Galatians is Paul's letter to the church at Galatia. Ephesians, Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus. So this morning's readings from Thessalonians is Paul's second letter to the church at Thessalonica. So Paul wrote these letters to encourage these young churches in their faith and to help them over difficulties they were facing. And there was a specific difficulty in Thessalonica that Paul is addressing in this letter. See, persecution, which we read about in the text, was pretty much in all of the churches. These people were, they were an oppressed people. They were under the Roman Empire, so life was not easy. But in addition, they were Christians, and following Jesus in the first century was not cool. It was not as popular as it is today. And you could debate how popular it is today. But these early Christians were a minority group, and they were not liked. So they had like a double helping of this persecution and affliction. So many of the people in Thessalonica remembered that Jesus said, "I'm coming back." And they prayed, "Oh, Lord, please come soon." And in this town, there were people who said, I think Jesus is coming back in 3 weeks. I think Jesus is coming back in 4 weeks. Well, I think Jesus is coming back on April 2nd. And these people who were desperate for hope, desperate for deliverance, kind of got sucked into this. And it even got worse. They sold their homes, they quit their jobs, and they stopped living responsible lives. Well, as day turned into day, and week turned into week, and month into month, and year into year, as people in the community started to pass away, they wondered if they'd missed Jesus. So that brought more hopelessness, more despair, more confusion. And this is the situation in which Paul writes this letter. And he starts the letter off this way. He says, "We must always give thanks to God for you." Right off the bat, Paul gives them and us the key to resilience in difficult times. During fear, during confusion, during hopelessness, during loss, Paul reminds them, and he reminds us of the gift of gratitude. Gratitude, he doesn't just tell them to be thankful, he models it. He says, "I am grateful to God for you because," and he goes on to tell them why he is grateful for them. Now, many of us think of gratitude as just a polite feeling. "Thank you for that glass of water." "Hey, it's nice to see you today." "Oh, thank you. You look great today." "Oh, thank you." But gratitude is much more than just a polite feeling or expression. It is a powerful spiritual discipline that takes us right into the heart of God, right into the heart of love. And because it does that, then it's able to lift us up when we feel down. It's able to strengthen us when we feel weak. It's able to give us guidance when we feel lost. It's able to sustain us when life gets overwhelming. I spoke to a woman who was battling cancer, and she said to me, "Every morning I thank God for something, even if it's just the fact that I woke up." And this attitude of gratitude sustained her through chemotherapy and through uncertainty. And she went on, she said, gratitude doesn't change my diagnosis, but it changes me. A mother once allowed her son to put his car in her garage so he could work on it. After 2 months of tripping over oil pans and tools, she approached him and said, "Hey, how much longer do you think this will take?" Rather than recognizing the gift of what she had given him, he began to grumble. "Oh, you don't know. You don't know how busy I am. You don't know how hard I've been working. You don't know how difficult this project is." Their relationship grew cold. Perhaps you know about grumbling. We all grumble from time to time. But when we grumble, I think it shrinks our world down to what's wrong for me. When we're ungrateful, we tend to focus on ourselves. What's missing for me? What's bothering me? What do I deserve that I haven't received? A lack of gratitude causes suffering because it breeds envy and anger and bitterness and resentment, and those things constrict our heart and they make our soul tough. They make us callous and they close us up. They limit our vision. But gratitude redirects our attention away from ourselves toward others. Gratitude is expansive. Gratitude shifts the focus from what's missing to what has been given. It creates hope and it creates possibility. Anthony Robbins puts it this way: when you are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. Imagine that same son, that same car, and that same mother. You're right, Mom. I have taken an awful long time on this. Thanks for your patience. I'll wrap it up this weekend. Gratitude looks for and acknowledges the gift in every situation. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And gratitude opens us up to see things and new possibilities in new ways. That's what Paul is telling the Thessalonians, the church at Thessalonica. Your faith grows through thanksgiving. Gratitude will help you overcome loss, hopelessness, lack of direction, anger, pain. It helps us see in a different way. Gratitude doesn't change what we see. It changes how we see. It becomes the lens through which we see. Paul urges us to give thanks all the time. And he says it in this text. He says, we always must give thanks for you because. Paul uses the word must. Gratitude is not something that we do once in a while. It's an obligation. It's not occasional. It's a have to. We must give thanks. Not because God needs it, but because we do. An interesting fact. As I was preparing for this message, I did a quick Google search on gratitude, and I discovered something interesting. Today, we use the word gratitude only 1/4 as much as they did 200 years ago. Could it be that we are only 1/4 as grateful as we were 200 years ago? If so, we have to ask ourselves, what happens to a people who lose sight of gratitude? What happens when our focus is primarily on ourselves and what we deserve? What are we missing? I think gratitude is like vitamin C for the soul during flu season. It doesn't erase our suffering, but it gives us that boost to lift us up, to see over it, to see the light, and to make different choices. I want to extend the opportunity for you to practice gratitude this morning. I'm hoping that you will, I'm not going to make you wear the glasses, but that you will stand and find maybe 2, maybe 3 people in this congregation and say, I am grateful to God for you because. So what does that look like? In our personal life with our partner, it might be, I am grateful to God to you because you know me better than anybody and I know you have my well-being in mind. Try that when you're in an argument. See what happens. Or maybe somebody who has a different political party than you. I am grateful to God for you because I know how much you care about this issue. I know how much research you have done. Gratitude opens us up to new possibilities and to the heart.